Germany has 4.3 million self-employed professionals. It is Europe's largest economy, and yet a growing number of digital solopreneurs are packing up and leaving the country. Now you want to know why. It is not just because of the money, it is because of everything around the money. Here are the 4 problems that nobody really tells you about before you register your freelance status in Germany. And if you stick with me to the end, I will tell you what you could actually do about it. Problem number 1. Let's start with the thing that everybody warns you about, but that nobody really quantifies. And that is, according to the ZEW Startup Panel in 2025, so last year, German startups spend roughly 10% of their weekly working hours on pure administration. Just imagine this. That's half a day at least. But my estimation is that for a solopreneur, this number is actually higher. So for somebody like you who's doing more or less everything alone, even if you have an accountant doing certain things for you, you're probably spending more like 1 whole day per week on just bureaucracy, figuring things out, filling things out. And it's getting worse, not better. The bureaucracy index hit another record high in 2025. Commercial law alone added over 1,500 pages of new regulation in the last 5 years, the strongest growth of any legal field in Germany. And the government passed the Bureaucracy Relief Act number 4. It sounds promising, but 69% of companies surveyed expect it will have minimal impact on their business. So what does this actually look like day to day? There are quarterly advanced income tax payments. There's the profit and loss statement that you need to file. There's a monthly or sometimes, if you're lucky, quarterly VAT filing. If you're a Gewerbe instead of a Freiberufler, this is a very specific German distinction. You need to add a Gewerbesteuererklärung on top. And you need to keep records for 10 whole years. I'm not joking. As a one-person digital business, Germany requires you to keep your records for 10 years, more than most countries in the world. In all seriousness, I'd run away immediately from Germany. As a matter of fact, I actually did. Now, let's talk about the second problem, and that is the real cost of all of this. Germany's progressive tax rate starts at 14%, which may sound very low at first, but the marginal tax rate, it climbs up to 42% once you pass around 68k euros. So like your first euro after that, it will already be taxed at 42%. But income tax is only part of the story, because we haven't talked about Social Security yet. The killer for solopreneurs is often health insurance, because a solo freelancer earning around 60,000 euros per year, which is, maybe a decent income, but it's not very high actually, then you have to pay almost 1,000 euros per month for the statutory health and long-term care insurance alone if you're under the government plan. That's nearly 20% off your profit. It's just gone immediately before you even paid a single euro of income tax. So on top of that, you still have the income tax. And now, to be fair, you can optimize this, for example, by getting private health insurance, which is often cheaper if you're still young and healthy. But if you're not, then you're out of luck and you have to pay this very, very expensive public health insurance plan. Unlike employees, nobody's splitting the bill with you. I have my opinion on this bill splitting topic, but that's a different discussion. So you have to pay the full health insurance and long-term care bill, and you pay the full rate. And also, if you get the income estimate wrong, then the health fund will actually back bill you. So if you think you're only going to make 40k and it's 60k in the end, they will send you a higher invoice. And then on top of that, there's of course retirement, because as a freelancer in a digital field, you're not part of the state pension system. You need to build this on your own, because otherwise you'll get practically nothing. So you have different options. There's the Ruob, there's a private pension, there are ETFs. Right now there are a few planned changes. Let's see what comes out of that. But it's entirely on you to figure all this out, which is generally not too bad. But it means that out of all of these deductions, you still need to pay into your retirement before you actually have money for yourself now this year. So it all adds up. There's income tax. There's the Soli surcharge if you're a high earner. There's health insurance, long-term care, retirement savings, a tax advisor, because you're probably going to need them, even if they're more of an accountant than a real advisor, because the system is just so complex, and I wouldn't advise that you do everything on your own. So as a solo entrepreneur earning about 80k before taxes, you can easily take home just maybe 40, 45k of that. And all of that while you actually have zero unemployment protection. If you don't have new gigs coming in, nobody's really coming to help you. So let's talk about problem number 3. Here's the one that can really drive people out sometimes. Scheinselbstständigkeit, one of my favorite words in the German language. It translates to about fake self-employment in English. If you come from outside of Europe, I think you can't even imagine what this is. So Germany basically has sort of a distinction between, are you more of an employee or are you a real freelancer? And if you say you're a freelancer, you registered as a freelancer, but they think you're more of an employee, then that's called false self-employment, because you say you're self-employed, but they say you're not. And the worst thing is there's actually not a clear legal checklist for what counts as genuinely self-employed or genuinely not self-employed. Instead, it's more like there's like for the extremes, there's maybe actually a sort of list of criteria, but in the end, the authorities evaluate each case holistically. So they look at things, whether you set your own hours, if you use your own tools, if you have multiple clients, if you can really decide when you go on vacation, or if it's more of a thing where you need to ask for permission, which is more like a normal employee. So the Deutsche Rentenversicherung, that's the authority that's typically in charge of this. They investigated around 42,000 suspected cases just in 2023 of basically suspected false employees, like false self-employed people. And this resulted in nearly €500 million of retroactive social insurance claims, which is mind-boggling if you think about it. And especially for IT freelancers, the scrutiny has intensified because IT freelancers, well, they tend to like to be classified as freelancers, and then the authority very often says, no, we think you're not. The 2024 amendments expanded audit authorities and tightened the criteria for tech consultants and creative professionals. The EU Platform Work Directive adds another funny layer. More than a third of German self-employed workers have reportedly considered relocating abroad specifically because of this legal uncertainty. If you are a digital solopreneur doing long-term project work for 1 or 2 major clients, which is extremely common in tech consulting, you're sitting in the danger zone. So actually, what could you really do about all of this? Move somewhere else. That's one of the easiest things you can do if you are flexible. All these problems we talked about are why you see digital solopreneurs more and more often moving to countries like Romania or Bulgaria, or even completely out of the EU to countries like Switzerland or Dubai. It's absolutely not that Germany has no business. Quite on the contrary, the market in general in Germany is huge, which it is why it is so sad that sometimes you kind of have to leave Germany to get out of this bureaucracy hell. The IT consulting sector alone hit over 50 billion euros in 2024 in Germany. So the money is there, the business is there. But the problem in Germany is structural. If you live in Germany, you practically work for the German government most of the time, not for yourself. So if you're considering going solo in Germany, or you already are and you're feeling the friction, drop a comment. I want to know, what's the one bureaucratic thing that frustrates you the most? And if you want the comparison between Switzerland or Dubai, check out my next video now.